Saddle up your horses.
What's going on, everybody? It is another episode of the Mainly Broncos podcast. It is a two-man show tonight. It is going to be Brandon and I manning the mics. I did send the link off to Maddie, so we'll see if he's able to join us. Yeah, and why are you asking? Is it a two-person show? Well, unlike Davis Webb and Vince Joseph, Jordan may or may not be having the opportunity for a head coaching opportunity before then. He's supposed to, it sounds like, be a head coach for one of his basketball teams tomorrow. So he's just doing some extra preparation and stuff, before that. So shout out to him. Hope it all goes well. First things first, hit the subscribe button for the MHRT Network page. And also hit the subscribe button for the Mainly Broncos page. And as we said last week and even in the weeks prior, the MHRT Network is doing a join feature. It's like a membership, and there are three different levels of it. There's a $2.99, $6.99, and then a $12.99. Feel free to hit the subscribe button for as much as you like to. There's certainly no pressure on that. And of course, we're going live on every single one of the X platforms for members of the show. Between myself at Cameron Parker PO, Brandon Miller PO, and yes, even though Jordan is not here, he is going live at his account at Jordan 2 Lopez, and of course the MHRT Network. So it's gonna be a blast. And before we dive into any of that, how are you doing, Brandon? And are those two cats easing the pain, or are they a little bit of a hassle?
I'm doing well. They were a little bit of a hassle in the beginning, but they've definitely started to mellow out. For anyone who doesn't know, I adopted two kittens a couple weekends ago. Actually, it's a three-man show, but I don't think the third man is going to be making any analysis.
Yeah.
He's just going to be hanging out over here on my lap. But it is definitely easing the pain of making it back to the AFC Championship game and then having the most winnable game possible if you didn't have a quarterback that broke his ankle the week before. So, whatever, but that's how it goes. I'm excited for this offseason, though, because I think this is definitely going to be obviously, we've been improving as a team to the point that, we haven't really had to have the are we rebuilding conversation for a while, but this is truly the first time where it really feels like, I'm not saying we're one player short or two players short, but it really feels like we have the space because they're no longer of the Russell Wilson dead cap, basically, to make some adjustments. You also have, a draft where we haven't made a trade that includes our first round pick like we did going into when we first hired Sean Payton. And then obviously the Russell Wilson trade. So having a full draft, having a full war chest of cap space, and then also having a team that has proven that they can have success and made it as far as the AFC Championship game and the number one seed is exciting. And we have weaknesses to fill, but it's not it's not the discussion we were having, for 8-9 years before,
right?
Sean. So I'm doing well and I'm excited.
First things first, with your two kittens, was one of the protocols to making sure you got the right kitten was asking them if Bo Nix was a franchise quarterback?
Yes, their exact response was meow, and
yeah. So okay, just
50-50.
And plus, with it being an orange cat, I mean, it seems fitting, that they would be Bronco fans.
They're both orange. Now I just need to get them a blue bandana.
Right, exactly. So as Brandon kind of alluded to, right around this point in time, you really kind of begin the first stage, when you kind of do content and stuff like that, maybe aside from you tease it during the season and stuff like that. This is by and large, the first point of, the off-season talk, really, when you kind of, if you will, do the first deep dive of what next as far as the Denver Broncos in the offseason. And look, they made the playoffs this last year this last year in sense of 2024, and then in 2025, it exceeded expectations. It exceeded expectations so much so that, it sucks. It's a punch in the gut that they are not representation for the AFC in the Super Bowl. Absolutely. But it's an exciting time because of the fact that season is, and for what's next. It's going to be an exciting time for the Denver Broncos, and Brandon and I will certainly talk about it. It's going to be, pun intended, mainly focused on like a free agency wish list. Where we kind of do a bit of a early on deep dive as far as like some of the position groups specifically, that we are going to be eyeballing, that we're going to be circling, positions that maybe they actually want to be looked at. So it's just going to be an exciting episode, and hopefully we get a chance to hear from you guys as well, the people that are commenting in the chat. I see Darian again, in the chat. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And to anybody that is watching the stream, feel free to chime in at any moment for a Broncos free agent, or even a take for that matter, reasonable take, I should say, when it comes to the Denver Broncos. So what about you, Brandon? Like, when you first look at this, like, offseason as a cuff, like, I think you did kind of like say it, like, it is super exciting to just kind of like sit back and realize that, yeah, they kind of came a little bit far with where they are, but it's an exciting time because every single offseason for the Denver Broncos, for the most part, like when you look relative to where they are, has just gotten better each and every offseason for the opportunities that they had in money, draft picks, etc.
Yeah, I think, going into this previous offseason where, we had finally made it back to the playoffs, great. But we kind of got obliterated. It was like, okay, well, we were able to get to the dance. We don't really belong at the dance. So like we can't go toe to toe with these guys. Right. And then like coming into this season, it was all about, okay, well, we gotta add some weapons. We got to add some running backs. We got obviously Dobbins, who played really well for us for the majority of the year. We got Harvey, who was kind of like, I would say as in his rookie year. And then you had the potential promise. I feel like it was like a lot of young guy promise in the wide receiver room specifically, with like, who's going to take a leap? Are they going to try to finally use Marvin Mims a little bit more? What is that going to look like? And then the surprise of Pat Bryant. But I think going into now this offseason, it's more clear of like, okay, yeah, you still have some guys in that wide receiver room that are playing well for you. Cortland Sutton is still Cortland Sutton. And you got some good tape on the rest of the room, but it's pretty clear that you need a elite weapon there and in the running back room, but
right.
Specifically in the wide receiver room. And I think that is going to inform the offseason a little bit differently than it did last year, where again, it wasn't strictly on like, we don't have enough weapons. It was more like, we kind of just can't hang here right now. Like Bo played well, but again, for his first time in the playoffs, but it was just too much for him to overcome, and he did need some additional help. And now it's like, okay, we've seen the ascension of Bo. We've seen what this team can look like if it has a somewhat regularly threatening running game, but it's still pretty clear that weapons are a problem. Like we went and tried to add Evan Ingram, didn't really work as well as you would hope. So I think you have a clearer picture of exactly what needs to be done, and you have a team that has the cap space, the cash, and you would hope, just desire to get over the hump that you need to go out there and make like a splash trade, a splash signing
or two
to really get to where you have learned you need to be after this season, which is a team that is on the rise, needs a little bit more consistency on defense in the later half of the year, needs an upgrade at linebacker. It's been a problem for literally ever, even after the Drake Greenlaw signing. Needs maybe a little bit of an adjustment on the offensive line because of the run blocking not being quite as good as you would expect, and really just needs some more weapons around your franchise quarterback at this point. He's I would say he can be given that title. And so it just gives you a little bit of a different perspective in how you view the offseason. And hopefully we see some more aggression from George Payton and company to secure what they have to secure in order for us to get back to and beyond the AFC Championship next year even.
Well, on the bright side, before we dive into any of the free agency stuff, it's off to a good start. The Broncos offseason is off to a roaring start. And why do we say that? Because 2 of the 3 coaches are moving on forward, meaning on the staff currently. One was a staff member I think you and I wish they held on to, but instead, as kind of became the expectations, of what went on in this offseason, the Buffalo Bills, I guess, just decided to be like, well, if you can't beat them, just steal some of their staff members. And so the Buffalo Bills ended up hiring not 1, but 2 in terms of staff members. They ended up poaching Pete Carmichael, and then they ended up taking, unfortunately, the person that Brandon and I have always kind of liked since day one, and that would be Jim Leonhard as their defensive coordinator. Kudos to him, though, for getting that defensive coordinator job. But as far as, if you were to really kind of ask a lot of Bronco fans, Brandon, if they had the actual likelihood to keep 2 of the hottest head coaching candidates in a particular cycle that had 10 head coaching jobs, I think we kind of would laugh at you, knowing the fact that there were 10 head coaching jobs and both Vance Joseph and Davis Webb are still in the building.
Yeah, that's surprising for different reasons, I would say, across both of them. Just to touch really quickly on the loss of Pete Carmichael and just the Bills poaching job in general. I didn't know about the Jim Leonhard news. Actually, I don't know how I missed this. I literally didn't know about that until today. I mean, I've been busy and I've had my hands full with 2 kittens, but that really sucks. I would say, even though we lost Jim Leonhard, Pete Carmichael, I don't really see as, he was with Sean since, umpteen years ago with the Saints. He's kind of been his right-hand man. But I think that keeping Davis Webb, like of all the things that could happen, you tell me we lose Jim Leonhard, but we keep Davis Webb. I think Davis Webb staying was definitely the best case scenario. Like, if you're going to keep any of these guys, you got to keep him, because based on everything we've heard, like the relationship between him and Bo and just like his impact on the offense can't really be overstated in terms of like how valuable his presence is and how much he really like is a part of Bo's development and Bo's ascension in this offense. So if you have to lose Jim Leonhard, okay, that sucks. I would much rather have kept them. And honestly, I would rather that Vance got a head coaching gig and we were able to promote Jim Leonhard. But, keeping Davis Webb, I think, is by far the most important. So I'm happy there. The thing that sucks is like if he does take over play calling duties, which we can talk about, and I don't know if that's in the cards or not. I feel like there's kind of just been that one report of like maybe Sean's going to give up play calling duties, and then people have talked about, why would Davis Webb take this job if it didn't include that, or at least like a discussion of that being in his future. It's a valid point. Like I think that it's probably more likely than not that he takes over.
Yep.
What could that look like? I don't know. Could that be an improvement? Could it be a step back? We'll see. But if he does, and if it looks like it did this year, and even if we take a little bit of a step forward in Bo's development in this offense, he's going to be gone next year. Like straight up, Davis Webb's going to be head coach next year. So you're only going to have him for 1 year, which sucks. But an additional year of continuity, especially going into, Bo's 3rd year in the league, which is pretty critical if you ask me. Obviously everyone talks about the sophomore slump and the kind of jump
he didn't
year 2, which he didn't have a sophomore slump, but like year 2 kind of being what it is. But like year 3 is really when you start to get into like the groove of who is this going to be? Like what kind of quarterback are you getting? Because you also have on the other side of the spectrum, like you have the CJ Strouds where they look incredible their first year.
Right.
And then they kind of just fall apart within the next couple of years. So having that continuity for year 3, I think, is going to be really important. Unfortunately, I just don't think Davis Webb's going to be here for more than another year, but having him for another year is great.
I mean, we thought he was leaving this offseason and he didn't. That's the thing. And so I think it's such a fluid situation that when you look strictly at the jobs and everything, obviously you alluded to it, perfectly, in the sense that he had, like, I think it was US Stadium said that they had 4 jobs lined up with an offensive coordinator type position, with him basically having full autonomy of the offenses and everything that was at his disposal, and he decided not to come to those teams. Thus begging the question, is he end up going to be a play caller? In regards to him even taking a head coaching job this next cycle, for me at least, and just looking at the whole entire package, I don't know if there's a full confidence that he will even take a job in this next cycle, right? Because the idea is there were 10 jobs available, 2 of which, maybe even 3, were the ideal, or 4, if you will, were like the ideal jobs if you're an offensive coordinator or even if you're a head coach that you probably would have wanted to have, and 2 of which were places he came from, the Buffalo Bills and the New York Giants. And he did not take a job as offensive coordinator with the New York Giants. Which I thought was very interesting. And then obviously when Joe Brady kind of got promoted and hired, if you will, it kind of became, he can easily go there, but it just kind of became, we all kind of know in terms of calling plays and that sort of thing. But just those 2 teams in particular are the ones where I'm just like, man, there might be something, at least on the surface, of where Davis Webb, if he's not going to be having a job in 2027, I don't know if he's going to have a job in 2028. That's just on the surface of it. But you're right. If he goes out and has a really good year with Bo, it's going to be really hard to not see him be a hot head coaching candidate, at this point. And frankly, it would also suck just from a Broncos point of view, because let's just say the team is marginally better, and this is kind of like an underlying point of the whole play calling thing. It isn't so much about play calling in the sense that you are going to almost let that Webb is going to be designing his Webb's offense, right? He's not going to be designing his offense. It's just about play calling from the Sean tree. Now, I think what will be interesting is how much autonomy will he have to maybe do some wrinkles off of that. In terms of some of these little play sets or whatever, maybe even screenplays, do some sort of play off of that, which might end up being something that might be a little bit more creative, but just an attachment off of that, I think will be a little bit interesting. But no, it's going to end up being Sean's offense. And I think that the part that we all have talked about that I think is going to end up being probably the biggest positive, and why him staying is the biggest thing. Look, Bo has done a tremendous job picking up Sean Payton's playbook, right? You and I can kind of agree with that. He really has done a tremendous job in terms of picking that up. However, when it comes to the lingo and the actual verbiage of the said play, which includes possible substitutions, it is so lengthy. So if you can get someone that's a voice in Bo's ear that can maybe shorten down that verbiage, that will only help matters going forward in terms of the play clock and getting out there so that it is, 15, 16 seconds, maybe even 20, so that things are out there quickly and that Bo can be able to diagnose the defense, which, we all know that if you have that much time, it's going to be better for Bo specifically just from that standpoint.
I mean, I love the positivity between both you guys thinking the Webb's going to stay long term. I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, I would love for him to.
I don't know if he is or not. It's just
I think, and like you made an interesting point of like, well, he didn't get the job this year. Did he get the job? Like, is he going to get the job next year? And I think a big part of this that we're not really going to ever know the specific answer to is what was his goal? Was his goal to become a head coach this offseason? Or did he look at this as in the lens of, okay, I can learn yet another year under Sean Payton. I can continue to develop this offense. I can really have a chance to be at the right hand of one of the best offensive minds, offensive head coaches, offensive play callers in NFL history for another year, and come along at a speed that is more conducive to long-term success, going from quarterback coach, passing game coordinator to offensive coordinator, and then to head coach, and like being able to have that extra year with Sean Payton, or going straight to head coach. Like, I would have to imagine, especially based on like the openings where he was a candidate, specifically like Vegas, that even though he might want to be a head coach, the prospect of being able to stay with Sean another year and come along slower and move up to offensive coordinator and then to head coach rather than just jumping straight there, because it's a big jump. Like even from QB coach to coordinator is a big jump. I mean, like he was a player.
It's like going to single A immediately to the MLB.
Yeah, so I do think that can play into it as well, and I think he's going to have opportunities unless he falls flat on his face this next year. Like he's going to be sought after for head coaching gigs, and probably I wouldn't be surprised if he's hired. So I would love it if he stayed, but I just think he saw the value in staying another year with Sean Payton, but he's going to probably chase a head coaching gig next offseason, and he should. Like I wish that for him. I think he has earned that success, depending on what he does next year with being an offensive coordinator and potentially calling plays. But yeah, I just think there were benefits to him also deciding to stay in Denver and taking himself out of those head coaching opportunities that he might have very well been able to take this year if he wanted to. Maybe he just didn't want to.
Yeah. And Darian asks, I think Sean will keep probably in the majority of the play calling duty. And if he does that, would you lean more that it would be a long-term commitment for Webb? Maybe. But my thing is, if you're going to go full on with the play calling duties for Davis, you are either fully committed on him as a play caller, or you still have the play calling duties yourself, meaning Sean Payton. Because you can't be like, okay, he's going to Davis Webb will control red zone or the 2-minute warning, and I'll control just the in between the 20s. So, so once we're there, we can get a little bit more creative in the red zone. I don't think it's going to be necessarily something like that. You have to be kind of like full on. And if it is the case, I wouldn't. And if that is the case, to your question, I would think that that's not necessarily a commitment at all. Because you're also not really bettering him at all. And I think that when you are already moving on from Pete Carmichael and Joe Lombardi, two of your most trusted staff members for 20-some years, that kind of would have told you, if you will, even just there's something up possibly with, giving up the play calling. And obviously there was the Joe Brady news that came out from Rap Sheet about maybe even giving it to Joe Brady as far as calling plays. So there's at least something there about the possibility of, I think though, like it's impossible for me to not think that he's going to have the full autonomy in the sense of calling plays, not necessarily creating plays and doing stuff like that. And I just think that there's going to be a little bit too much there was so hard to pass up. I will say though, I'm not. Yeah. I was not trying to be like convincing of like that. I think he's saying I don't know the answer, because like we're sitting here, and the news just happened to break a couple days ago. It's just there was so much happening in this particular cycle with 10 or more jobs that if you were to tell me that Davis Webb did not even take a job like that, that seems really crazy to me. So, yeah. And there's no guarantee that the said jobs that will be available, next year are going to be as enticing as some of these jobs that were there this cycle, right? And so if you're Davis, it makes me wonder. That's where I'm like, it makes me wonder, like, how long term did he look into this, right? Because if he's looking at it from the standpoint of, well, next year, if the, such and such team is firing their head coach, I don't know whether or not, like the New York Jets, right? Like, let's just hypothetically say, like, the New York Jets move on from Aaron Glenn. I don't know whether or not that's actually an enticing, place for him at all, right? So it's just, it kind of, it just gives me that maybe the sense of, like, I wonder how much of the forward thinking did he have, when it came to that coaching staff. So, but I'm like I said, I'm not fully convinced he's staying. It's just I'm kind of looking at it from all angles.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you have the opportunity to get a head coaching job, you got to jump on it, right? So, we'll see what happens next offseason. But speaking of the Jets and just kind of switching into free agent discussion, I saw a question in the chat from Mike. Should we go after Breece Hall? Oops, we clicked at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's also interesting. There's that Darren Moogie connection as well with the Jets. Breece Hall, man, I am so torn because I've been pretty firmly in the do not pay running backs in free agency, like don't sign free agent running backs market, because you can draft so many competent and skilled running backs, even in like the later rounds, that can go out and be the guy for you. Breece Hall, unfortunately, is just kind of in that weird space for me where I don't know, because I love him as a player and I don't know if I love what it would probably take to pay him. At the end of the day, I think I would go for it. I think Breece just gives you something that you have not had in this running game, even with a healthy J.K. Dobbins, with his ability as a runner and as a receiver. He's like pretty underrated, I would say, as a pass catcher. And like, I know people do like view him in that role, but I think he's even better than you would kind of think, even though he's viewed more as kind of like that, kind of like explosive weapon, specifically out of the backfield, like between tackles and breaking off big plays. But I think using him in the run game or in the pass game is also just as dangerous as utilizing him as a weapon as a running back in the running game. So I would probably be for it. I think that would definitely be an upgrade. I think we also need to upgrade the offensive line a little bit, and the specifically like run blocking that we're getting from our offensive line, because it's not been as good as it has in the past. And I don't think it's been quite as advertised when people say that we have, one of the best offensive lines in the league. I think that was pretty clearly disproven when you look at how, frankly, terrible they looked against the Patriots, and the Patriots have a good front, but like, how much did Bo cover up the deficiencies of this line? Mm-hmm. Not saying they don't have some good guys there, but I think just you got to look at what can you do to upgrade the blocking up front. Ben Powers, I love you, but just the availability there has not been fantastic, and doesn't look quite as good. So I think there's some things you can do there to improve the running game. But I do like the idea of Breece. Similarly, like a different free agent running back that's available, Travis Etienne from the Jags, man, he has had like kind of a career resurgence in the past couple of years. Like, he didn't look the best when they drafted him in the first round, which was crazy. But he got back out of when they were trying to get Trevor Lawrence, his running mate. Move off Powers, exactly. But I think Travis Etienne, even though I'm still in the I'd rather draft someone, I don't know if I want to pay someone. Just both of those guys bring something to this offense that is so desperately needed. I think I saw Travis Etienne as like the most rushes of more than 10 yards in the league last year. I might not be 100% correct on that, but I think he had like more than 20. He's just been kind of on another level this season. I think either of those guys would be, personally, I think they would be a good addition to this running back room, as much as I don't necessarily want to pay them. And I think that what they're going to demand in a contract is going to be expensive. I would sign either of those two players and sleep like a baby.
It's hard to predict on Travis Etienne just because, well, one, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. They also had a resurgence, and his college quarterback had a bit of a resurgence with there at Jacksonville as well. So it's kind of hard to predict. But he is one of those running backs, of course, that would stylistically fit with Sean Payton. I was going to say,
I do think he would be cheaper than Brees. Is the other reason that I would be interested in him. But,
yeah.
I agree.
Before we do talk a little bit more about the free agency, let's touch on the Vance Joseph thing. Just because that was like the last staff member, right? So I want to ask you this, because obviously we were posing the Davis Webb thing, right? If there's anything that could probably lend itself to the idea that is Vance Joseph the Sean Payton's next Dennis Allen, where he's here for almost a long haul, or a rather long, career, if you will, with the Broncos, I probably would say that Vance Joseph is the most likely to be staying long term than Davis Webb. So how confident are you, knowing the fact that Vance Joseph, who won associate head coach of the year, is actually going to be staying in Denver long term after this?
Long term, well, so there's a couple of nuances that go into this. Like long term, I don't think it's possible to answer that question, but I do think, given the state of the NFL, it is, and I'll explain what I mean by that. It is more likely that we're able to keep him for maybe as long as we want. And unfortunately, I think the reasoning for that, and this has been a pretty hotly debated topic in recent memory, but the NFL seems to have I would say, Rooney Rule problem. And the reason I say that is I do think it's too easy to just check a box and say, well, we satisfied the Rooney Rule. We interviewed Vance Joseph. We interviewed XYZ coach, right? And I think that really is a disservice to some of these guys that are really a good candidate, but I don't think that they're viewed as a good candidate. I think that, again, I'm not in the room, I don't know, but I think that it's too easy to, again, view the Rooney Rule as like a check mark to check off on a clipboard and just like, well, we satisfied that, and not actually take that candidate seriously. And that really sucks. That really sucks for Vance Joseph. That sucks for a lot of these coaches that absolutely deserve shots in this league to be a head coach. And if you look at the hirings this year, especially some of them that are questionable to say the least, it's very white. We'll just say that. And it's not necessarily a topic we bring up much on this podcast, but I do think it is worth talking about, and I do think it is unfortunately a problem. So given how much of a problem it is, that could work against Vance in the case of getting a head coach. And for the team in terms of keeping him long-term as a defensive coordinator, but I absolutely think he deserves to be a head coach again, and that sucks that he's not going to be. I'm not saying for sure that was why he wasn't hired. I don't know that. I just think, like, given what we know about just I would hesitate to even say nuances of that rule, because there are no nuances. It's literally a check mark. Flores is the other one. It just is sad, and it sucks, and like they got to do something else, because there's a lot of coaches that are getting passed over for head coaching jobs that absolutely deserve to be head coaches. Vance Joseph is one of them. Do I love him as a defensive coordinator that I want here for the long term? Yes, I do. Like I'm torn, because there seems to be an issue in the past couple of years, and I've talked about this before, where towards the later half of the year, when there's more tape on the tendencies that he goes to, the defense has kind of fallen apart a little bit. And that could also be a skill issue in terms of like just the lack of talent that we have in certain areas of the defense, unfortunately. And I'm really specifically pointing at linebacker. I love Alex Singleton, but he's just not the kind of linebacker we need right now. And then Dre Greenlaw not being as available as you would hope. And then us having those injuries at the safety position, like obviously that all plays into it. But I love Vance. I want him to stick around if we can. But I think he deserves to be a head coach, and I was hoping that he got a head coaching gig this offseason for his sake, but also so we could promote Jim Leonard and not lose him to the Bills like we just did. I'm just surprised that he didn't end up getting that shot, and I think he deserves it.
I just think that Bronco fans at times have to be careful. Not saying you, Brandon, but I was just like, because like when you ask them, you know, should Vance get a head coaching gig, it also kind of turns into yes, because he's definitely deserving, and then you kind of ask it, you know, in the sense of, you know, well, should he return as Broncos defensive coordinator? And you're like, you know, so like, so no, no,
let me rephrase that. I do
no,
want him to be our defensive coordinator.
I'm not.
I just think that there's improvements that could be made.
No, and again, I'm not saying you, but it's just like we have to be really careful about that because it's like, you know, because it's like when you have a conversation of like he's definitely deserving to be a head coach, right? But he's not deserving to be coming back, you know, and returning to, you know, our defensive coordinator.
I see what you're saying. That's a great question, and what I mean by that, and I think this is where it gets a little bit more nuanced.
And again, it's not you, Brandon. It's just
I know, but I think this is a good discussion to have, because that is a good point. Being a head coach and being a defense coordinator are two different things. Like being a head coach, obviously you want a guy who has a good defense, and like especially if that's the side of the ball you're hiring him from, you expect them to be good on their side of the ball. Like that's how they came up, and that's, you know, that's their resume, so to speak. But the reason I think Vance deserves to be a head coach is not because he's a good defensive coordinator, because he
deserves
genuinely seems to be a good leader and a good person that the players and the team can rally around and enjoy playing for and play hard for. Like that's one thing you say about Vance, even when he was our head coach and he seemed like he was a little bit in over his head. The players played hard for him. They wanted to play for him. They love him. He's definitely like the textbook definition of like a player's coach. If you look at if you like, you know, to look at quote unquote players coaches, look no further than Vance Joseph. And I think just he has the charisma and the just leadership talent to be a very successful head coach, because there's so much more that goes into it than just being a good defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And for that reason, like, do I like him as our defensive coordinator? Yes. Do I think that there are some things that could be improved? Also, yes. But based on who he is as a leader, I absolutely think he would be a very successful head coach. And he would still hire a defensive coordinator. He would still hire an offensive coordinator that you need, and you need those other positions to help you as a head coach. And yeah, you're going to, you know, when defense is your thing, you're going to consult on the defensive side of the ball. And I think he does a great job with that. But I just think that the job description is so radically different that it's not something to draw a connection between.
Yeah. Well, and the other side of it too for Vance, like specific to this job, it's like maybe, and this is something that we have at least asked, or maybe even we're wondering, it's like, maybe this is what he wants to do. You know, like he'll interview jobs because like, you're not going to say no to interviewing for promotion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like maybe this is exactly like what he wants to do. Because again, like if you were to ask a lot of Bronco fans, and I know I'm bringing up something that's a past conversation you and I had, but it's like if you were to ask a lot of Bronco fans that if we were to get this version of VJ as a defensive coordinator with what we had seen as a head coach, I mean, we would take this any day of the week, knowing the fact that we have seen everything we would have wanted to see, which was the defense get better from the year that he was there to where it is after 2025, right? There were some end of season. Yeah, there was some end of season stuff in there. But based on the prolonged season, it was definitely an improvement, if you will, based on, you know, where things were that year prior.
The jump from that Dolphins game, giving up 70 points to where we are now, night and day, so impressive. Do I think that there are definitely some things that can still be improved? Yeah, but I agree. I think like the adjustments that he's made to the defense and like what he's been able to do pretty much since that point, like that was the low, that was rock bottom, and then it was nowhere else to go but up from there. And he absolutely, you know, answered the call with that. So kudos to him.
What do you say, Brandon? Victory Lap's asking.
Black.
He says,
I have no reason at all. It's just my gut feeling.
Just a gut feeling. Yeah, so it's gonna be fun. And if anything, to tie bow on all of this, the Broncos have continuity. One more time again, they have continuity on their team and on their staff, and that is not replaceable. It is irreplaceable. And it is very valuable to have that kind of continuity. Okay, going forward with NFL free agency, and we'll dive a little bit more into the Breece Hall conversation.
Yes. Well, what do you think? What do you think of Breece? Like, do you like the idea of Breece Hall?
I have a very hot take.
Yeah, go for
it. And you know me, I've had conversations with Darian before too, and like. He knows that I'm a big RJ Harvey fan. I know that you know that I'm kind of a big Harvey fan as well.
I think that is RJ Harvey's birthday, so happy birthday to RJ Harvey.
That said, I want about a high ceiling running back room as you can find.
I would agree.
And because and I posted on social media, and I want everybody, if you guys are in the chat and are, follow both Brandon and I on social, to retweet and comment what your guys' takeaway is for the poll question that I put on Twitter. And frankly, it's really close between two positions. Because, the way I would preface this is, and we said is, the Broncos have a really good roster, but they really lack in the top end playmaking side of things. So much that they lack in the playmaking side of things of running back 1, tight end 1, and wide receiver 1. But you have to choose one. You have to choose one of those three, in that poll. And it's a tough one right now between wide receiver 1 and running back 1. So to the running back point, I'm thinking running back, right? And the reason why I say high ceiling is because one of the biggest friendly things for a quarterback is the running game. It is absolutely the running game. And so would I love having a Jalen Waddle in that room? Oh, 1,000%. Would I love having an A.J. Brown, the player, in that room? 100%. Would I love having a George?
I love how you had to specifically say the player.
Yeah. Would I love having George Pickens, the player? Yes.
That's where you have to do it.
Right. So absolutely I would take that. But if you were to ask me how I would remake the room, and look, I know Jaleel had some nice moments and stuff within this roster, I would remake the room with Breece Hall, J.K. Dobbins, and R.J. Harvey.
So you'd bring back J.K. Dobbins.
And sign Breece Hall.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to drafting one. Obviously, I went to the Senior Bowl. I enjoyed some of these running backs.
I don't see that happening. You're getting rid of Jaleel McLaughlin?
Yes.
Because I don't see how those four can exist in that room. Okay. Yeah. Like if RJ Harvey's going to be your primary pass catching guy, I like the idea of that. He's very good as a pass catcher. I think having Breece and J.K. Dobbins, man, I'm so torn. I love J.K. Dobbins. I'd love to have him back. Maybe having a running mate in Breece is exactly what he needs to maybe stay healthy for longer and not have to take the lion's share of the workload. And you split it more 50-50 or even not even 50-50.
Let's speculate right now. What would you sign him to?
What's that?
What would you sign him to?
J.K. Dobbins?
Yeah.
What did we sign him to last time?
It's like a 1-year, $5 million deal or something, or like 1 for 3. It was really, really cheap.
Yeah. Man, I mean, clearly he wants to stay and come back. I think he said even he wants to be Bronco for life. It was 1 year, $2 million contract. Man, that's just so cheap. I would say, just given how much he helped this offense, even though he does have a little bit of an injury concern, I would say he definitely, that was a prove it deal. I would say he at least to some degree proved it. I would be okay with giving him 2 years, $10 million or something, maybe a bit less, maybe a little bit less, maybe 2 years, 8.5.
I'd almost do 2 for 10.
I just said that.
No, but like, are you
No,
saying
10
but are
million a year.
No, but I was just 5 year. Did you actually mean
Oh,
5 a year?
Yeah, so yeah, two
Yeah.
years, 10 million total. Yep.
Yep, that's exactly what I would do.
Yeah. I think that would be fair.
Yeah. But also I would do it so that like if you're at least guaranteeing yourself, is it a perfect world that they sign Brees Hall with J.K. Dobbins? No. But I think what the Broncos are at least affording themselves with is they have a plan B. They have a backup option in case someone that they may really, really want, is there. They have a fallback option that they can really come back to in JK. And I don't think it's a really bad idea for them to re-sign JK and then go into the draft and draft a guy like a Mike Washington or a Jonah Coleman, or Jadaria Price or whatever, So, I don't think it's a bad idea. It's just like when you kind of think of a higher ceiling, that's, I think, what I would also do. And I think that at least on the create your own rumor type of situation, I have to think in this day and age of the tampering without tampering type of situation, that knowing the fact, and I believe it was Darian that mentioned this in the chat before, but it's just like knowing the fact that Darren Moogie and Aaron Glenn both have at least some ties to both Sean Payton and that Broncos organization.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to think that there's some sort of backdoor communication going on with like Moogie, Hall, and Allen. That's almost like, look, we are going to try like heck to keep you, but if you do leave, we would recommend. It's almost like, when you walk into a store, right? And they don't offer what you have, but yet they say, hey, you can go shop it somewhere else, like.
It's like, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
they recommend.
Yeah, so like it's just like we would recommend if you wanted to go somewhere where you could get and reap the benefits of something, that the Denver Broncos would be one of the very first teams that I would want to reach out to. So I have to think that there's some sort of backdoor communication like that. And again, I think there's a million. This is the beautiful thing about free agency and why this overview of what we're doing here, probably in the next 45 minutes, is such a beautiful thing, because like there's a lot of wish lists that can happen, but there's also a lot of avenues that can make it a successful offseason. Like J.K. Dobbins, someone else that they go out and sign for a different position, and then going into the draft and maybe even signing a linebacker, to pair with Dre Greenlaw. That's maybe not Justin Strnad. You signed Justin Strnad, but maybe he's not starting, but you have a room of Strnad, someone else, and Greenlaw. I think that would be a little bit of an enticing room. So, like, there's definitely different ways you can win an offseason for the Broncos, if you will.
Yeah, and I do like your idea of doubling up with JK and with
It's
Brees.
also a pipe dream too.
Yeah, but the reason I say that is I think the two places on offense where you absolutely have to improve, other than tight end, which is just like a perpetual improvement that has to happen every year until you find a guy, is running back and wide receiver. I think with running back, as great as it would be to have an elite player, and I'm not saying that Brees Hall doesn't have that ceiling. I think he might.
It also owes himself to leave the Jets too, so we can see that.
He probably wants to go somewhere new that actually is a contender so bad. Like, I feel for him, and honestly, I think that's why we might be able to get him at a discount. Like, he probably wants to play somewhere that has a legitimate shot of actually winning. But what reason I was kind of getting into, wide receiver versus running back is I think of the two, what you can get in free agency at running back is going to give you enough to field a rushing offense that is going to help Bo and is going to be, has the ability to maybe be top 10. Is it going to be top 5? Probably not, but I don't think you necessarily need to be. But I think if you're going to try to get a game breaker somewhere, you want to get that at wide receiver. And I think when you're talking about the free agent draft class, I don't think there truly is a game breaker at wide receiver that is available.
Right.
Other than George Pickens, but you probably just don't want George Pickens. Like, you don't want that drama and just like what he brings to the locker room in a bad way. So I think if you're going to focus on upgrading those skill positions in free agency, you want to focus on running back. Again, as much as I say, don't pay running backs and draft them, I think you have the ability to do that here. And you can go after wide receivers in the draft. And especially just based on where we're drafting. And I'm not saying these guys, like, unfortunately, based on where we're drafting, we're not getting we're not getting Jordan Tyson, we're not getting Carnell Tate. Mekhi Lemon, maybe, if we're lucky. But we're looking at
gotta be lucky on that one.
We're looking at like Casey Concepcion, Omar Cooper, and Denzel Boston. I think with all three of those guys, they all give you different. What's that?
I was going to say Chris Bell too. He did have that injury,
Chris Bell, because he had the injury. Yeah, he's gonna drop for sure. That's the only reason I didn't mention him. But I think with those guys, you're going to get enough of an upgrade that, again, you're probably not going to get elite, Jamar Chase level guy. And as much as I want that, you have to be in the right position at the right time to get something like that. But for how you're able to upgrade in the offseason and free agency at running back and still have some options available to you in the draft at wide receiver, I think that's the most efficient way to go about adding to both of those rooms. And so I'm definitely, in on the idea of, double up, bring JK back. I'm already on that train. I think, that 2 years, $10 million, great. And I think getting Breece Hall or ETN, I would be happy with either. I like Breece Hall, and keeping RJ Harvey as kind of your passing down guy.
The other side of it too is like, look, it's just the nature of the actual running back room. It's going to be cheaper to actually go get yourself a running back than it is a wide receiver one.
For sure.
Based on the financial aspect. Yeah. But I will say this though, like, there's something. I'm lukewarm on the idea because of where he is at his age. But I'm coming back to the idea that, there was the rumor that kind of came out where he was one of 3 wide receivers that showed pretty heavy interest himself of wanting to be a Denver Bronco. And that is Deebo Samuel. You had Jalen Waddle, Deebo Samuel, actually 4. Jalen Waddle, Deebo Samuel, Stephon Diggs, and Cooper Kupp. They all expressed some pretty strong interest in wanting to be a Denver Bronco. I think where I don't know this answer. I really don't know this answer. But I have to wonder if were the Broncos lukewarm on the idea of trading for Deebo because of the capital that they probably would have had to give up to San Francisco at that point, versus now you have Deebo Samuel on the open market, and he's not going to be paid all that much, I would think. He's not going to be paid all that much. So would he sign maybe a 1-year, 2-year deal, if you will? And then on top of that, this is just a different avenue to look at it from the running back side. That's not the running back side of things. Do you sign Deebo, to this 1-year, maybe 2-year deal, and then also on top of that, you trade for Jalen Waddle, to really upgrade the room? Because I think at least what Deebo gives you is at least another option like Marvin Mims to where you can kind of use those guys in a little bit of a different way. So maybe you bring J.K. Dobbins back, and you start working through a little bit of some different packages of Deebo and Marvin and, in some different areas to where you at least have the impact of the running game and passing game with either Deebo or Marvin. It's just the way that I'm kind of like I said, I'm lukewarm on the idea, but just given the fact of Deebo's versatility and everything that he does add, I have to think that maybe as a free agent, the Broncos are at least trying to see if that's a possibility. Like I said, I don't know if that is, But it's one where I'm kind of like wondering, will they be?
Yeah, man, I don't know. I'm so torn on Debo. Like, I like him. I like the idea of him as a player. I just think based on his age, he's 30, and like the amount of wear and tear he's seen with the just heavy usage, specifically in San Francisco. Man, he's a special talent when he's healthy, but I just don't. I don't know if I love the idea of like you're talking about adding him and using him in that running back role. Obviously not strictly a running back, but if you're putting him and J.K. Dobbins in that backfield,
or him and Marvin, or
it's just a dart throw. It's like if it hits, great, but you're putting two guys that have both struggled to stay on the field together in a room that desperately needs help, and you might lose both of them. Like, I can't get there.
Yeah. Well, that's what I said. I'm really lukewarm on the
honestly,
idea.
Jalen Waddle is in a similar boat to me. Like, I love Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle, if he stayed healthy and he wasn't on the Dolphins, I think Jalen Waddle could be on the similar career path that you see Jackson Smith and Jigba on right now.
Well,
not, maybe not to that same extent, but I think Jalen Waddle is just such an incredible talent that is unfortunately being wasted, one, with Tua, and two, just not being able to stay on the field.
One thing I'd watch regarding Jalen Waddle is, in fact, if the rumors are true and Tua Tagovailoa is not going to be a member of the Dolphins anymore, that's going to be roughly a $99 million in dead cap hit for that roster. Tax-free, whatever. That is $99 million in dead cap. So in doing so, they probably are going to be wanting to move off from, at least another big contract to just free off some of that money. Look, we saw it here, right? We saw it here. And given the fact that, we can take on at least a contract in Jalen Waddle, I'm very interested in the idea that Jalen Waddle is going to be a little bit more of an option. Plus, I wonder how much, too, of the trepidation and pause that the Broncos front office had on some of this was just due to the fact that the Russell Wilson contract, at least at the point of the season, wasn't officially off the books.
Mm-hmm.
And now that it's officially off the books, I wonder if and they made the AFC Championship game on top of that. I wonder if now that's where you see a little bit more aggressiveness, where maybe they are aggressive in the sense where you see a little bit more dart throws in the sense of, picks being traded and players being acquired, them really surrounding around, Bo and everything. And you start to see a little bit more of the stuff that we were probably hoping to see, which I think would be so funny that in this offseason, not kind of to circle back, but just Davis Webb gets his promotion. He's calling plays, and they're on aggressive, in free agency, for Bo Nix on top of it. It's just like, it would just be so funny that, like, in all of this offseason, they're capitalizing on the idea that, yeah, let's do it. Let's go all in.
I am curious now that Davis Webb is, moving up to OC, and I don't know how much, pull he's going to have and how he wants to shape this offense, but does he have someone in mind or specific players that he's in love with that he wants to add to this offense in any way, shape, or form, in wide receiver, tight end, running back room? And I would be interested to see how this offseason plays out in who we go after and if that was a Davis Webb decision.
Well, we said it too, like, and granted, it didn't really happen yet, but we said that if Davis Webb gets promoted to offensive coordinator, one of the things that happened around that point in time was they let go of their wide receiver coach.
Yeah.
So will Davis Webb have influence on maybe who he wants to hire for wide receiver coach? Because
he wants to hire for coach, but also just who he wants on the team.
But that's what I'm saying. So, like, if he hires someone that, like, is the wide receiver coach that he has in mind.
Oh, I see.
That could also lend itself to the idea that there will be some players that do stick around, but, like, you might be talking about some pieces here and there, two pieces here and there that were on the roster, this last year that aren't going to be on the roster this upcoming year.
Yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. I mean, how much do we decide we need to change, and what are those changes going to be? I'm interested to see.
Well, if there is one position that I will say going into free agency that I would probably have, will it happen still? I don't know. But if there was something, when I look at the overall overhaul of the Broncos and the room when it comes to running back, wide receiver, and the tight end position, Brandon, if there is probably one position that could probably use a little bit of an overhaul, if they wanted to keep Ingram, but they wanted to use a little bit of an overhaul, it's the tight end room.
Oh, absolutely.
And so there are three players in free agency, at least on the top, that I know probably you, myself, and a lot of Bronco fans have been circling. And that being Dallas Goedert, Cade Otton, and David Njoku.
Oh man, I do like all three of those players. I'm torn because of do we want to approach this tight end problem in free agency, or are we finally going to actually spend some draft capital on this problem? And I
that's
think
too. The tight end class in the draft is really good too.
It's good. It's not as good as last year, but I think I would personally lean more towards the draft personally, and just really shoring that up for the future. If there's someone in free agency you're going to bring in, I don't see them letting him go. Apparently, all of my hype dreams this offseason are from the same team. But Isaiah Likely is only going to be 26 years old, and he is underutilized right now with Baltimore. Baltimore has been underperforming.
Clearly, he wasn't staying.
Yeah, and what is Jesse Minter going to do with that change up, and who are they keeping? So I like him. Hunter Henry, I think, is also a tight end that's hitting free agency this year, but I'm personally leaning more towards draft someone, just with the availability of good players in this draft at that position.
Man,
I would rather go that route, but I do think you can look at
Hunter Henry.
That might be also because of what's up.
Hunter Henry's not a free agent.
I thought he was. When did he sign that deal? Oh, it's next season. Never mind. I was a year too early. Yeah. Although they could cut him with only $2.5 million in dead cap if they decide to do that, and he is also 32, so it would be a stopgap. But I thought that was this season. Anyway, regardless, I would rather go the route of the draft anyway.
It's just an interesting class. It is a really interesting free agency class. I would venture to guess, if I was to predict and kind of look into this tight end room, I have to think that Evan Ingram is at least on the roster, but the question's just going to end up being, the tight end. Ingram's probably going to fall in line to maybe being a tight end too. And I think at that point, when you served his role and you kind of serve with what he's done, I think he'll probably be a pretty solid tight end too at that point. But I'm looking at guys like Njoku, Goddard. If you do move on from Evan Ingram, that's where I think guys like Isaiah Likely and Kyle Pitts would probably be a little bit more of an option, right? And plus, I think it's really hard for me to not see Isaiah Likely going to the Giants. We're down.
Yeah.
But that's so you also have Zach Ertz, who's at 35 years old, clearly has shown, at least something. Noah Fant, does he come back there? I doubt it. But and then you have some of these other guys you have Chig Aquanco, who's out there. Kate Otten, obviously, is out there. So there's some players that are out there that are just kind of sneaky in this free agency class. So it's going to be interesting to see not just how the Broncos attack this, but how other teams attack it, given the
Kyle Pitts as well, who kind of has had a late
right.
resurgence.
And that's what I was going to say is like if you do move on from Evan Ingram, guys like Isaiah Likely and Kyle Pitts Kyle Pitts specifically would be the one I would be wanting to look at if you do move on from Evan Ingram.
I do think, maybe the Evan Ingram signing in free agency is tainting my view a little bit in terms of why I'm not loving the idea of signing a tight end. And I do think last year's draft was better personally than this year's draft in terms of tight end prospects, but I think I would still lean towards the draft, even though there are some pretty enticing names. And that might just be because of how Evan Ingram has, I'm not going to say not worked out because he's been okay, but I really just am so ready for a difference maker that, the difference makers, in my opinion, the true difference makers at tight end, they're never available. You have to draft them.
So when you go look, so those are the three biggest needs, right? Like the three biggest needs. If we were going to be looking at the Broncos roster, wide receiver, running back, tight end, as far as like the search for tight end one, or even running back one, or even wide receiver one. So that's where it's like the wide receiver. The wide receiver one is just we did mention Debo, right? Like we did mention Debo. There is man, it's just there's a bit of a wild card here, and granted, it's not flashy. It's not it's not one that I don't think is by any means a Jalen Waddle or the George Pickens or anybody like that. When you have a stipulation of what Sean Payton likes, and as a wide receiver and everything that he wants in a wide receiver, it is really hard for me to ignore Juwan Jennings in free agency.
Mm-hmm. Juwan Jennings is an interesting one for sure.
Like, is he a true wide receiver one? No. Will he probably be paid in the Cortland Sutton frame of mind, which is the 20, just a tick above 20? Probably. And that's where it's like, I just doubt it happens. But if you were to, make a Sean Payton type wide receiver in the lab, it is undoubtedly Juwan Jennings.
Yeah. I am a little torn on, he's about to be 29. And we already have a plethora of wide receiver 2s and 3s.
I know.
But I do like the idea of Jennings.
Well, but again, it's one where we're all saying this because it may not necessarily be what we would like to do, but it's also one where you also kind of get a chance to see what the team is accustomed to, and it's not a knock, he's a good player, but it's definitely one where it's definitely one where it's like, man, I just don't know. But yeah, obviously, Juwan Jennings, the one I'm hesitant on is the one that I actually do not think he leaves this team, Brandon. But it's one where it's like, does he owe it to himself at this point in his career to maybe just see what it's like, on the outside with, a pretty decent offense, right? And everything. And that would be Mike Evans. Sign a 1-year deal, and then, and you just kind of see what happens, and then obviously at that point, depending on how good it is, you give yourself maybe a couple more years and then you retire, but
yeah, Man, I
know it's just like
can't see him not being a Buccaneer for life, but
exactly.
it'd be crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Because again, like you want to talk about probably a true wide receiver one here, but also one where he's undoubtedly not leaving Tampa Bay. Mike Evans at least is one where it's kind of like that's interesting. But I mean, yeah,
Sucks that he wasn't able to hit how many years in a row did he have? 11 straight 1,000-yard seasons.
Yeah.
That's insane. Wasn't able to get it this year. Man, that just sucks.
Well, I think that like this is kind of like the overarching like take on the Broncos and just specific to this free agency class. This wide receiving class in free agency is probably a whole bunch of wide receiver twos. Maybe some wide receiver twos and wide receiver threes.
That's also where I'm in I'm in a similar boat there as I am with tight end, where like the true difference makers, the earth movers at that position are not available. You have to draft them. You cannot trade for them. You can't sign for them. If you have one, you're never letting him go.
Well, because like the thing too is like, let's just say they still are on the trend of not wanting to use not wanting to use Marvin Mims. Wan'Dale Robinson would be like the most ideal sense, for coming here. But at 17.6, at that point, I would almost want to just move on from Marvin Mims and just sign Wan'Dale Robinson if you're going to make that kind of investment, And I love Wan'Dale, right? Like he's Husker royalty for me, but it's one where he's had a great year. Like he had a resurgent year with the Giants. Then you had obviously George Pickens. Alec Pierce has been a really popular name. Brandon, Alec Pierce has been a really popular name.
It's gonna be expensive.
The market value right now for Pierce is 20. My problem there is I think Pierce probably still is a wide receiver too. He's a high-end wide receiver too. But I also think that's probably the most you're ever going to get. Obviously, I think if you ever
he's
ask
probably the highest end wide receiver two of all these guys, but he's still a wide receiver two.
Yeah. But I think that when you look at it from just the Pierce side of things, it's like, man, he probably does stylistically fit there with the Broncos offense. But it's one where it's like he still probably would be in that niche of is he a wide receiver one or is he a wide receiver two, which you already kind of have that at home with Cortland.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree. I think another place that they're going to be, I think, sneakily looking again is the offensive line, and particularly like the interior of the offensive line. He's a little bit older, but Wyatt Teller from the Browns is a free agent this year, and I can't imagine wants to spend the penultimate years of his career in Cleveland, where you don't know what's happening. They still don't have a signal caller. They just hired Todd Monken after going through the weirdest head coaching process I've ever heard of, where they also alienated their very good defensive coordinator who doesn't want to come back. And he's 31. He might be interested in change scenery, and I'd like to look at him. So there's definitely some guys out there that I think are not sexy names that you could see the Broncos look at and potentially sign to shore up some places that maybe aren't as glaring of a need as running back, tight end, wide receiver, but interior offensive line with specifically replacing Ben Powers, or maybe even bringing in some more competition at center. We all know who my free agent crush is this year. That's never going to happen in Tyler Linderbaum, but I do think you'll probably see at least one move be made there, probably on the interior.
Also,
interesting to me.
Also, if you are looking at, the class next year, Do I think he's going to happen? No, because I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are probably going to afford themselves the chance to actually sign him. But Parker Washington's a free agent in 2027. So, but yeah, again, it's one where you kind of like go through the different scenarios and kind of figure out like, trade, because like then you also like are kind of talking about trade candidates and stuff like that as far as like for the team. I will say this regarding offensive lineman, Brandon, because I think that if there's any move that we could probably say that might happen as far as like just off the top of our dome, it's probably Powers. But the thing there is like, I would have to think that if they aren't comfortable with giving Palczewski the nod, if they aren't comfortable giving Palczewski the nod, then they either are going to be keeping Powers, or they have, right? Like they have an option in mind. Like they need an offensive lineman. Like the moment you move on from Powers or whatever, you need an immediate replacement at that point. And I think that's probably one where it's like, is that one where maybe you keep Powers, right?
I do agree there. I think, if you don't keep Powers, you're immediately in the hole and need someone pretty badly. Unless they really believe in Palczewski, but I think they like him more as a swing guy. It's interesting to think about. I just think like with how Powers has not been as available as you would hope, and also not been quite the same in the run game as you've seen him be in the past, and that might be because of injury, but I think they just might look at some options that could be available there. But I do agree. I think like if you get rid of Powers, you have a plan. Like you have to have a plan, whether that's Teller or whoever, because you can't just get rid of him. Like you don't have a good replacement in house. Could you upgrade on the free agent market? Sure, but you have to know that that's happening before you decide to move off of Powers for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can even keep Powers. Maybe they even keep Powers as a swing guy and depth. I don't know. I mean, they might need to restructure his contract for that, but
the other position we actually did not get a chance to talk about that might actually end up being pretty high on the list as far as options and players, Brandon, that also could be having a bit of an overhaul, is also one that's probably a tough conversation for Bronco fans. For Bronco fans that love Alex Singleton. And that's the linebacker room. I got to think Dre Greenlaw is here. And then the question's going to end up being, do you have Sternad come back with a little bit of a pay raise and you actually start him? Or do you go into free agency and you dip your toes into the idea of Frankie Louvu, Bobby Ukarike, Jordan, sorry, that's just 2027. My bad. Demario Davis, who clearly said that he was a free agent. Matt Milano from Buffalo. It's a free agent. Obviously, there's the familiarity of Caden Ellis and Jonah Ellis. I think a lot of people are going to be looking at that one. Quay Walker. Obviously there's Devin Lloyd.
Devin Lloyd is going to be Devin Lloyd and Quay Walker are the cream of the crop for sure.
Yeah.
I think everyone in Broncos country has been hammering for a athletic, rangy linebacker for years, I would say at this point. And you have to, I think, do something there, so that'll be interesting to follow. I do think
Kobe Dean's another one.
That is potentially the area where if it's not like a skill position player, you might see that be the splash. I don't know for sure. I have no inside knowledge of this, but just based on what you would like to see from this defense moving forward and how you'd want them to improve, I could see that happening.
Well, like, what would you put yourself in the shoes? Like, what would you want to do?
Probably like go after like Devin Lloyd. I don't think he's going to be quite as expensive as Quay Walker. He's still going to be expensive. Like, he's a very, very good player, but I think he gives you the ability to just like be able to upgrade the linebacking position in a place that you, in a way that you like haven't in literal years. I think he has like 5 interceptions. 5 interceptions this year. And one of them was a pick 6. So like, if you're looking to really, again, have an actually good coverage linebacker, which has been one of the Achilles heels of this team for a while. Well, even though Singleton has kind of been decent there, and like Greenlaw, yes, he's
good at it.
He's good at it. He just has not been available.
Yeah.
Which sucks.
Well, and to the Justin Strnad point, it's the same argument that we had for PJ Locke. PJ Locke earned the right for a pay bump, and also probably at that season that he had, I believe it was 2023, earned the right to have that contract and at least have that pay bump to be given a starter role. The problem was when he was given that starter role, we saw kind of how unfortunate things were with him being a starter, and really kind of how he just became this super utility, reserve player, when it comes to the Broncos defense. And that's frankly, that's his elite role. Like, he's an elite role player. And I think Strnad, is that same conversation. I think he definitely earned a pay bump. There's no doubt. But I don't know if he earned the pay bump that is going to be one where you and I are going to end up being comfortable to say, like, hey, I don't know if I feel comfortable based on the high ceiling of where things are with this defense and looking at this defense. And it's a very good defense. But if you could say with a straight face, like, still some of those weak links is that linebacking core. And if so, I think for me, the perfect world, responsibly at least, would be having Dre Greenlaw and Caden Ellis as your starting linebackers. And then and then at that point, you can see if you can work your way of getting maybe Justin Strnad back, for maybe a 2-year deal or something. But I don't know. It's one where I understand the idea. He earned the pay raise. You earned the pay bump. I just don't know if I believe in Justin Strnad for a full season.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Justin Strnad is a decent depth piece. I think gives you what he does on special teams, but I don't think you can view him as a starter in any way, shape, or form, to be honest with you.
Is there any other positions that you would want to also talk about? Obviously, we talked about offensive line, but like linebacker, wide receiver, and running back, like those are the primo positions.
Those are the primo positions. I think you have to keep the defensive line a strength, and specifically the defensive interior. If you don't bring back John Franklin Myers, and I don't know why you wouldn't.
Probably not happening, but yeah.
They should pay him, but you have to bring in someone else to keep that a terror and keep that a strength of this defense, because I don't think you can afford to let a player like that with that kind of production leave. And if you do, you have to bring in something similar. I don't know what he did to be in the doghouse of this front office, but he deserves to be paid. I want to keep him. I think we should keep him. Do we keep him? I don't know. But if we don't, we probably need to bring someone else in.
Sheldon Rankins, Andrew Billings, Tim Settle. I mean, there's
none of those names stick out to me either, which sucks.
But that's the thing is like it, and this is why you kind of look at it from the Broncos draft side of things. If there is one thing this team needs from a front seven defensive line side of things, and we'll talk more about this probably in the upcoming draft, it's a big, fat, 330-pound interior defense lineman. This team needs someone that can really kind of soak up those double teams. Roach has been great, right? Roach has been great. JFM has been great. But if there's one thing that, clearly the Buffalo game continues to prove to us, we won that game. But if there's one thing that game kind of proves is that you need a little bit more beef in that interior, and you need some interior defensive linemen. And so hopefully, the Broncos are looking at something where they can be able to add a couple guys. They're 325, 330 pounds of just a player that can just really soak up double teams, and really kind of fill those gaps in the running game.
Yeah. I think you got to try to keep him, but yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I don't think there is a good replacement for the kind of production and kind of player that John Franklin-Myers is. So if you do get rid of him, whoever you bring in, probably not going to be as good. I mean, he had 7.5 sacks this year. We should keep him.
Yeah. And then obviously they probably want to see what's going to end up happening with Savion Jones and getting the chance to see him develop a little bit more. Maybe we see some more Jordan Jackson. I don't know, but so certainly something that I think the Broncos, from a pure continuity side of things, have always, at least at this point, have been really good on the side of familiarity and continuity. So it'll be really interesting to see how it all shakes out. But that like we said, that was like our abbreviated shortened version of like each position group. We'll do a little bit more when it comes to the running backs and stuff. Maybe next week. What position would you want to look into next week? You want to start right into the big ones?
Well, next week I'm going to be out of town, so you should ask Jordan what he wants to do. But I would love to. I mean, I would love to hear Jordan's take on this wide receiver room. So maybe not wide receiver. Maybe start with
save it.
Back, but
save it. Or maybe we'll talk trade candidates too. Like maybe do some trade candidates as well. But yeah, so it should be a lot of fun. There's never a dull moment when it comes to the season. For the Broncos or just the NFL season. It is the Super Bowl. Obviously, we are rooting for the Seattle Seahawks, not the New England Patriots. And hopefully this time when they get to the 1-yard line, they give the ball off to Kenneth Walker and they score the touchdown instead of throwing an interception to Malcolm Butler. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And by next week, we are going to be a full month away. It will be a full month away from NFL free agency. So it's going to be an exciting time. And I am excited about how things are certainly going to be unfolding with this Denver Broncos team. What's up, Jace? Thanks for hopping in. It's going to be a lot of fun. And as everybody also knows too, like when it comes to this Broncos offseason, I like to get fan interaction more. So I like to actually have some fans on the show. And get a chance to like maybe even some other content creators that are Bronco fans. I think some of the people that I've talked to is Mile High Mims and Broncos Edge, and obviously your typical guys like Andy, and obviously guys like Mario and others, and obviously the rest of the LTP guys I've talked to and having them be on the show. So it's gonna be an exciting time, and obviously, of course, with it being the offseason, you actually have to try and see if we can get some of these insider knowledge as far as like what they might actually do going forward. So it's going to be an exciting time for Bronco fans and for this offseason because it seems like things are gearing up for the point of maybe them being a little bit more aggressive in this offseason. So it's going to be an exciting time. Thank you guys so much for hopping in. Make sure you hit the subscribe button for the MHRT Network page over there on YouTube. And as we said, there's a join option, which is a membership feature. There's a $2.99, $6.99, and a $12.99 feature. You guys can subscribe however it is that you feel like, and we thank you so much for that subscription. You also subscribe to the Mainly Broncos YouTube page. That is a personal Mainly Broncos YouTube page that is set for this live stream. So if you miss it on the MHRT Network, we have it on the Mainly Broncos YouTube channel, as well as the things that we are more famous for, if you will, and that is our short form. And we do a bunch of short form over there on YouTube in terms of YouTube Shorts. We also do stuff over there on TikTok as well as Instagram. And we're definitely gaining in popularity over there on Instagram and of course TikTok a little bit too. So
that's a great time to check us out over there.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a lot of fun. Yeah, yep, Kona. We got 25 million or more of free cap space. So maybe they use it on some Kona beers.
That'd be fun.
That would be a lot of fun. Definitely go check out. By the way, Kona does a show called Bronco Buzz every Friday with Bronco Bill. Kona's the one that always kind of keeps him in line. So make sure you go check out the stuff that they do over there on the MHRT network. I believe they air every time around 6 o'clock Mountain Time on Friday. So go check them out. Obviously, we do a whole bunch of other stuff too on the network. By the way, I'm trying to ask us to see if we could be able to do more like Nuggets content, but obviously, like with what we do for what we do, in terms of content, we have an Avs channel. Like we have an Avs channel in terms of an Avs show called the Cluster Puck Podcast. We do the Wild Wild West show, which was actually a show that actually aired just before this one, which is an AFC West look in terms of all the other NFL teams. Obviously, this one on Wednesdays, we do the 5280 podcast at 7 o'clock on Tuesdays. And then we have a bunch of other shows as well. So it's going to be an exciting time, obviously, for this offseason. Thank you guys again for hopping in. Hit the follow button for both Brandon and I at Brandon Miller PO and at Cameron Parker PO. Hopefully Jordan can be there next week. See you guys next time. And without further ado, God bless Bo Nix.
Let's go Broncos! God bless Bo Nix!
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flame mouth.